Great to meet you.
Nice to meet
Good
you.
to have you on. Now,
Thank
your
you.
podcast is all about asking the hard questions. You're direct, you get to the point. Have you always been that way?
Yes, since I was very young. Is that I was, yeah. My mom always tells me that. So, and not in a kind way, I would say. Yeah.
But it served you well, that's for sure, because you get to the point when you're interviewing people, you don't mess around. What
No.
has the reaction been to that style of interviewing?
I think people like it. I think people, I was just talking to someone and they asked me, what's the best way to do an interview? And I said, ask the obvious question, because a lot of reporters are trying to go around people and get to the question they want to ask. And I just start from the question that's obvious on everybody's mind. I think because people think it's not like, well, I'm not going to ask that. And I'm like, well, that's exactly what you have to ask. And so I just get to it, especially if there's issues around a company. I do a lot of business people. This is the result. How do you justify that, or what are you doing here? And so I think they appreciate it because they're sort of waiting for it. And I think a lot of small talk exhausts people who get interviewed a lot.
Yeah, and it's efficient too. I think people really love efficiency. I recently rewatched some footage of that joint interview you did years ago with Steve Jobs and Bill Gates. I just watched it over the weekend. What do you remember about that interview? What was your big takeaway?
They're sort of the two sides of a certain tech coin in a lot of ways. And so I thought it was great that they were together. And I was surprised by how much poignancy there was in it, especially given what's happened to Steve Jobs. And I think at the time, they really were talking like historically. And that's what I asked them to do, and so did Walt. We wanted them to think about things in terms of history and their role in it together and apart. And so I found it very, I think it'll last for the ages. I know it sounds crazy, but we designed it so here you have, it's as if you could have Thomas Edison and Henry Ford and interview them together.
Of all the big names in tech, I'm imagining some are more difficult than others to interview.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are more open. Is there someone that stands out that was a little bit more challenging to interview?
I think it depends. Probably Barack Obama, of all people. He's very performative, and so he knows how he comes off, and so you don't really get to the actual person. I think people are very practiced at what they do, and that's why my interviews are long, actually, because they after a while I exhaust them, and they have to actually show the real person. It's very hard to keep up talking points for a long, long time, and so I tend to wait them out in many ways, or actually say nothing sometimes. So there's a lot of silences.
Yeah, people don't love silence, do they? It makes people uncomfortable. You've had a front row seat, obviously, to the evolution of technology. Here we are in 2023. The pace of AI, to me, it seems like it's just spinning wildly. Where do you see AI heading?
Well, AI has been around forever. It's not like this is a new thing. It's been worked on for decades. And I think what's happened is there's been some very fast-moving developments, especially in generative AI. It reminds me a lot of the early internet. When the internet started and I was covering it, a lot of people were like, well, what's on it? Like, right? It's like TV. What's on it? And I was like, everything is on it. And that's kind of a weird answer, but it's everything. And so in a world where everything that can be digitized will be digitized, by the way, this is a new generative AI. Like, what does it do? Everything. You could do all kinds of things. Write me a speech, do this, sort of like an assistant. Where sci-fi has been with computers for a long time is where we're going.
You're coming to Canada for a live
Yes.
recording of one of your podcast episodes. Super exciting, with one of our favorites, Lily Singh. You're going to be chatting with her. Now, you mentioned a little bit about your interview style at the top of this interview. Do you always have a plan in place, though? I know you get right to the question out of the gate, but is there a plan, or do you kind of you hit the guest with the question you most likely want to ask first, and then you kind of see where it goes?
It depends on the person. I interviewed Roy Wood Jr. yesterday, who was the comic at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. He did really well, and he's in line to maybe take over the Daily Show here in the United States. And I thought it was going to be more funny, and it took a very serious turn because he did, right? Because he was talking about issues about journalism, and so I went with it, because it was really interesting to talk much more seriously with a comic about where we are in this country and how to make comedy and all kinds of stuff. So I did not expect that, and so I tend to try to start off what they're working on and different things and what motivates them. And then if the conversation moves to another area because they're interested in talking about it and it's interesting, I tend to go there. In this case, this is someone I talk about entertainment, their career. Obviously, the writer's strike is happening in Hollywood. There's all kinds of news issues to discuss. And how you make entertainment it's a very serious topic these days among entertainers.
But we look forward to hearing that conversation. Thanks for
I'm
having this
excited.
conversation with us, Kara. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this, be sure to subscribe here, or you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.